I'm First Officer Shane Corbett. I'm a 737 First Officer here in Atlanta. I'm also the Communications Committee Chairman for the Delta MEC. I'd like to welcome everybody to the virtual town hall. Today with me, I have MEC Chairman Captain Jason Ambrosi, Negotiating Committee Chairman Captain Eric Criswell, and Senior Labor Relations Counsel Andrew Brenner. With that, we'll discuss the following topics today, among some other things. Section 6 updates on the global scope agreement in principle, the strike authorization ballot that was passed at the August MEC meeting in Boston, the upcoming September 1st picket before Labor Day weekend that will be nationwide. Jason will talk to you about that, as well as addressing some of the questions that were submitted by you, the Delta pilots. We will address those as well at the end. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Captain Jason Ambrosi.
Well, thank you, Shane, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It certainly has been a busy summer. Thank you for your unity and support. It helps us move the needle at the table. As Shane said, we want to brief on several items as the summer comes to a close. Primarily, I'm joined with Captain Eric Criswell, the Negotiating Committee Chairman, to give us a recap of where we are in negotiations. The negotiators have been meeting all summer as we try to narrow issues in preparation to focus on high-value items that are typically part of the endgame negotiations. As Shane said, we'd also like to get to some pre-submitted questions on your behalf. Let's kick it off with Section 6. We've made progress this summer, but quality of life and economic issues need to be addressed. Our goal remains the same, a comprehensive industry-leading agreement that you, our Delta pilots, have earned with no concessions. With that, Eric, I'd like you to please take it over and brief our folks on where we're at. Thank you.
So like Jason said, we're making progress. It's slow. The summer, we've primarily been dealing with scheduling, quality of life type issues. The lion's share of these issues are contained in sections 12, 22, and 23 of the contract. So really since the February, March timeframe, we've been working in small working groups. We've got our subject matter experts from our scheduling committee. That's a very talented team there with from our scheduling committee, as well as a member of my committee, Rich Wheeler, has been in that small working group. He was a former scheduling committee chairman. So there's a lot of knowledge in that room, a lot of understanding of what the pilot issues that everyone's facing on the line today are. We have a pretty comprehensive list of items that we're looking to improve in this negotiation. It's complicated. There's a lot of things that tentacle into other pieces. So, the time being spent, some of it is being spent just because things are complicated. They take time, but things aren't moving as fast as we'd like to either. We're still meeting every other week. The timeline that we're on is about the most aggressive that the mediation board ever schedules. So we're meeting twice a month at the minimum, and we expect to continue to do that until this deal's done. But we are still largely kind of in the weeds on scheduling issues and trying to make some pretty big improvements there, because we know that everyone on the line is looking for some pretty substantial gains in this contract. Once we get to a point where we feel, we're satisfied in scheduling, the intent then would be to move on. We've closed over 20 items or 20 sections of our contract. Our contract, as you know, has 28 sections. We've closed 20 of them now. And one bright spot out of last week was we did close our section 25, which is a medical, dental, life insurance benefits. We came into this negotiation with some of the most expensive health benefits, no contractual, high deductible plans. We're going to come out of this with, we believe, an industry-leading package of benefits that are much more affordable and provide, better coverage for our pilots and protected by the contract. So all that's good stuff. But like I say, we're really, where things have really slowed down is trying to solve scheduling issues. Coming out of COVID, obviously, the ramp up's has been pretty quick, and that's posed obviously challenges for our pilots to try to manage through schedules, and that's highlighted a lot of issues that we know will need to be solved. So, like I said, once we get to a point in scheduling where we're satisfied, or if we get to a point where neither side's moving, we expect to move on then to the value discussion, the compensation, the retirement, the vacation, those sorts of value items really are what's left on the table once scheduling has been addressed. We're back at the table next week. Again, every other week we're meeting on Section 6, and we're going to keep pressing and keep our foot on the gas to try to get this thing done.
All right, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Let's shift gears a little bit to global scope. We had an AIP some time ago. We received questions from pilots on where is the final language, what's taking so long, so on. I'm pleased that we're getting close to a final language on this. The devil's in the details. We want to make sure that proper protections are in place for our pilots. And once a tentative agreement is reached with that final language, the MEC will be briefed, review, and ultimately you, the line pilot, will be able to say up or down on a membership ratification vote for global scope. This is something that we wanted as Delta pilots. International joint ventures are a thing that we are going to have to live with going forward. We wanted to ensure that we have the appropriate amount of flying for Delta pilots. At a meeting almost a year and a half ago now, Ed Bastian committed to the MEC to tackle this concern for the Delta pilots, and they've seen it through. The company has seen it through. We're down to the final language writing, and it's taken longer than expected. However, at the same time, we did not want to delay Section 6. So Eric and his team have really been working hard to do these two things in parallel so that global scope doesn't cause any delays in Section 6, while still trying to work hard to get the language done for the global scope and make sure there's no loopholes or anything in there that could catch us at some point. So Eric, I really appreciate your team's efforts, including the expanded team of the scope committees and other folks involved with global scope. And with that, I'll throw it to you to provide the pilots with a little more color on global.
Global has, like you mentioned, Jason, we came to an agreement of principle back in May of this year. That was really the culmination of over 4 years of effort. We've been this negotiating committee has been talking about scope in various capacities, really the whole time that I've been on it, and I've been on this committee for 5 years. And global scope has been one of those things that's been a priority for the MEC, largely because what we have in our current scope section, is at the time was viewed as solutions to problems that existed. However, as joint ventures have matured, as the company's business plan has changed, there was a growing desire to handle it in a more comprehensive way and to consider, all of our partners in one agreement rather than, a patchwork of various agreements that measure different things in different ways. So, that's been a priority for a long time. We really started in earnest with this negotiation, really after the spring of 2021, and that negotiation, took the better part of a year to get here. The language writing process, again, we announced this back in May. We know that there's a lot of interest in what's the details that are in this agreement. We are not taking this task lightly. Like Jason said, we've got a full Section 6 schedule on top of this global scope, and we really don't want it to delay the Section 6 process either. So, we are working on whatever time we have in between to push global forward. I do want to mention, there are several provisions in the global scope agreement that address the current flying situation, which is still depressed from pre-COVID. One of our central goals was to not really give a one-to-one type growth credit for Delta for just recovering from COVID, right? So, the point there is they're going to recover. We shrunk more than our partners during the COVID drawdown, so we expect to grow more than our partners during the recovery from COVID. So, we didn't really want to start the one-to-one clock counting when we're still recovering from COVID. We want to grow more than our partners to get back to the point where we were before, the world kind of stopped turning for 2 years. So that whole process, we believe, is going to take through 2023. So we have some very specific checkpoints and gates that the company must honor throughout 2023 as part of this deal before we can really even get into, giving credit for the one-to-one growth. And those require the company to grow more than our partners for a period of time. So Without getting too far in the weeds, the reason I say all this is because, whether this agreement is set out for you all to weigh in via membership ratification, in September, or whether it happens in October, November, I just want to make sure everyone understands we are not leaving anything on the table, regardless of what that timeline ends up being. Getting the language right, making sure it says everything that we intended in this agreement, and also putting numerous examples in the contract so there's no ambiguity going forward. Because this does change the paradigm on scope. This is a very big deal, and we're not taking it lightly. We appreciate everybody's patience. We're also working on educational materials. Jason mentioned our scope committee. Those guys are rock stars. They've been with us through the whole negotiation and the language writing process. We've got a great team. I mentioned Rich is on our team. We also have Brandon Conwell. He was a former scope chairman. So, we have a pretty great depth of knowledge on our committee, as well as our subject matter experts in the structure of ELPA that are with us. And again, we're taking our time because we want to do this in a way that we can all be proud of, and doesn't turn into anything that's unintended down the road.
Well, thank you, Eric. And as a Delta pilot that's going to fly under this agreement, I know I appreciate the amount of effort that you and your team are putting into just making sure the detail and the language is right on the global scope. Shifting gears a little bit to the strike authorization ballot. So we've heard loud and clear from many of you that this is something that is you want to move the process forward. It's about timing. At our August MEC meeting, the MEC unanimously passed a resolution calling for a ballot based on the movement at the table. This does not, however, mean that a strike is imminent. The Railway Labor Act dictates when self-help is permitted, and we're still in mediation. The mediator would have to declare an impasse to start the process towards self-help. Andrew Brenner, our Senior Labor Relations Counsel, who is also part of the negotiations team and is at the table, Andrew, would you give us a brief rundown on how the actual timing of the process works as we get to a potential self-help situation?
Sure, Jason, and you're exactly right. Negotiations in the airline industry are governed by the Railway Labor Act. We began negotiating back in April of 2019. We started with the direct phase of negotiations between the parties under Section 28A of our pilot working agreement, calls for the application of a joint request for mediation through the National Mediation Board. That joint request was actually made in January of 2020, a couple of months before our contract required us to submit that. And so mediation began that next month in February of 2020, right before COVID hit. We are still in mediation, and during Section 6 of the Act, the NMB, the National Mediation Board, has jurisdiction and control of the process. The NMB determines things like the bargaining schedule, how often the parties meet, for how long, the subjects of bargaining, those sorts of things. And they also make judgments about the reasonableness of the positions and proposals of the parties. The NMB will determine the length of time that the parties remain in mediation by considering a number of factors. But mediation will end with either the parties reaching an agreement or, as you mentioned, a proffer of arbitration. And it's just another way to say an offer of arbitration. If either party, either the association or the company, reject that offer of an arbitrator coming in to determine terms of the new collective bargaining agreement, at that point, the next phase that would follow is what's called the 30-day cooling off period. And it's a little bit of a misnomer because things aren't cooling off. They're typically heating up, and it begins oftentimes super mediation during that 30-day cooling off period. But if an agreement is not reached at the end of the 30-day cooling off period, at that point, the parties are released to engage in self-help, both the company and the association, and we are free to withdraw our services at that time if an agreement is not reached. So that's the process in a nutshell. I do want to make clear that the NMB does not determine what the outcome of these negotiations are. That's determined by the parties, by us, and really the will of the pilot group at the end of the day. But the NMB cannot force a particular settlement. The NMB uses its powers, either the threat of withholding the proffer or sometimes suspending mediation, or called parking mediation, as its primary tools to push or move the parties towards an agreement, either making threats to do one of the or the other. And then at that point, the goal here really is to get a deal at the end of the day. But the Delta pilots determine we have the resolve to go the distance and what it takes to reach a deal that's worthy of the pilot group. So that's the process in a nutshell. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that, and thank you for all your efforts on behalf of the Delta pilots at the table and in everything else you do here for us at the Delta MEC. We know education is the key as we look forward to continued communications from the Strike Center that explain more about what a strike authorization ballot is. The Strike Center is now open right here in Atlanta. It's running. Volunteers will be on site until we have a contract to answer questions, build a support structure needed should self-help be needed, and continue to educate you and your families as this process goes forward. So why have this vote? A unified pilot group is our ultimate leverage at the bargaining table. Management needs to know that we will go the distance to get the contract we've earned. This is one of the most powerful weapons in our arsenal. Remember, our goal is not to go on strike. It's to negotiate a tentative agreement that you have earned. To be clear, a yes vote does not mean we will go on strike. It authorizes your elected leaders to call for a strike after the NMB determines further mediation is not productive or will not help our parties to reach an agreement. It may be necessary to engage in self-help. Your MEC does not take this step lightly. It's a serious decision. However, your vote sends a clear message of support for your negotiating committee at the table. Eric, would you like to add anything on the strike authorization vote from the negotiating committee angle?
Yeah, hey, look, so, our committee was out picketing on June 30th. It was a great show of support. We had over, 1,000 pilots system-wide. Show up to those events. I think it was closer to 1,300 or 1,400, and that's outstanding. I commute to Atlanta to do this job every week. I'm through the terminals often, as well as staying current as a 320 captain, and seeing guys out there with the lanyard on, the green lanyard, and giving us the salute with the heads off. It's all very helpful to us, and just shows unity. And the company notices. They certainly know when pilots are unified, and that definitely gives us some tailwind at the table. As far as the strike vote goes, like Jason said, our goal is to bring you all a contract that you're proud of, and that you will that we'll have to live under this deal for the next X number of years, and it has to be a deal that you've earned. And so our goal is not to take this thing all the way to a strike. Our goal is to find the right the deal that honors the Delta pilots. And however, it takes two to tango in that party. So they're like Jason said, it's not telling us to go on strike tomorrow. It's saying, hey, when you don't think negotiations are going to progress any further without further leverage, then that's the natural next step. So. But we appreciate the support either way with with the lanyard, the hats off campaign. Come out and picket. That September 1st event is right around the corner. Please, if you can make it, please do so, because we definitely need a unified pilot group as we get to kind of the more heated part of this negotiation. All
right, thank you again, Eric. We'll shift gears a little bit to something that I know is is something that annoys me is stock buybacks. So we're getting to the point where at the end of the period, the moratorium on stock buybacks under the CARES Act legislation. So last week, ALPA joined other airline labor unions calling management to stop the practice of stock buybacks. Our message is invest in people, not Wall Street. From 2014 to 2019, major airlines, including Delta, rewarded Wall Street with more than $39 billion in stock buybacks. Meanwhile, airline workers have had contract negotiations on hold for years, delaying raises and improving working conditions. Please join our fellow airline employees in demanding that CEOs put the industry's stability, passengers, and workers first. Greed doesn't fly. Please log into the ALPA website and sign the petition on stock buybacks as we move forward on this significant and important issue. Now I'll piggyback on something Eric just talked about, which is the September 1st informational picket. Eric, you're absolutely right. If your schedule allows, please join your fellow pilots at every base on Thursday, September 1st for our final informational picketing event of the summer, just before the Labor Day weekend, the busy Labor Day weekend travel. Your solidarity on the picket line has gotten management's attention and that of the traveling public. It moves the needle at the table. It gives the negotiators tangible proof of our resolve as the Delta pilots to accept nothing less than an industry-leading contract. Other ALPA pilots, as well as SWAPA and the APA, will also be picketing on September 4th as a show of solidarity throughout the industry prior to Labor Day. Eric, I'm sure you agree, as you said, that the pilots joining us on standing shoulder to shoulder is a huge step in assisting you with leverage at the table.
Yeah, no doubt, Jason. Like I said, we were out there June 30th. We're actually going to be at the table on September 1st, and I just want to echo everything you've said. It certainly provides us the tailwind knowing that the pilots are behind us, and you got to show that, and you show it by participating in these pickets when you can, by sending us your feedback, talking to your reps, wearing the lanyard, hats off, and all the above. So these are the ways that management looks to see where the pilot group's at, and if it looks like the pilot group's not behind us, that hurts our efforts. So we need you behind us, and we're not giving up on this. This contract is long overdue. Like I said, our foot's on the gas, but we're not going to bring you a deal that's not appropriate for the Delta pilots. You guys have earned, we all have earned a contract that we'd be proud of, and that's what's on the table for negotiation. We are not negotiating concessions. We're not negotiating in a down market here. I mean, the pilot supply is. We are a commodity. We are not a commodity. That's a terrible way to say it. We are a very valuable asset to this organization, and our contract has to represent that. And we're at the table every day pushing pushing exactly what was in our opener. Our goals have not changed.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Again, please join us and stand shoulder to shoulder on September 1st. Before we throw it to questions, just to reiterate, our team is working as hard as they possibly can, and I really appreciate their efforts. A true team of volunteers here. It's not just those of us that you see in front of you here today, or that you see at pub events. We have a huge group of volunteers that are working really hard behind the scenes to do it. Focus on finishing that global scope, focusing on putting the Delta pilots first and getting a contract that you have earned, that you will be proud of, regardless of what's going on at other properties around the industry. The Delta pilots are going to get a contract that you've earned and that you will be proud of, not a 50+1 solution, something that you will be proud of. We have not forgotten the 4 pillars, pay, scope, quality of life, and retirement. All that is still on the table. We are pushing forward. With that, Shane, I'll throw it over to you if you'd like to do some of the questions that you have.
So we had several dozen questions submitted by pilots, and a lot of the same themes were sort of shared by a lot of the pilots. So what we did was we sort of distilled these questions down a little bit. So if you don't see your exact question answered on here, that's because it was probably asked by several other pilots. And so we tried to ask the question in a way that kind of covers all bases. So With the first question here, I'd like to ask Jason. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask Eric. Who sits on the company side of the negotiating table?
So it changes from week to week, depending on what we're talking about. The company's core team, they've got one labor attorney that is, I would say, they're chairman of their committee. There's a couple pilots on their side from the management pilot ranks, and they've got finance people and people from largely what we talk about has an effect on crew resources, crew planning. So they've got representatives from that side of the house as well. That's generally their core team. When we're talking about health plan, medical plan, that sort of thing, they'll have benefits people, or retirement, they'll have some of their experts on that. But generally their team is really just they've got one labor attorney who's prior, in his prior life he was working with the JetBlue management. He was responsible for negotiating their JetBlue's first contract back when they did it, when they became an ALPA member. So he started this process partway through, and he's not been part of their team for over, I think, about 3 years. But we have a rapport with the other side of the table to the extent we need to have it. But we're there representing pilots, and like I say, they bring the same 6-7 people to each negotiation, and then supplement from there.
All right, thanks, Eric. The next question is for Jason. What is the status of retro pay negotiations?
Thanks, Shane. That's an excellent question. So that we get that a lot. Right now, we're yet to get to the major economics. That's typically an end game issue. As Eric said earlier, we've been, while progress has been made, it's been slow, and we're still trying to work through some of those scheduling issues and so on, as Eric had indicated. That certainly does not mean that retro is not an essential piece of this agreement. As a matter of fact, at our last meeting, the MEC passed a resolution adding language in the policy manual, the Delta MEC policy manual, that discusses a retro pay as part of any Section 6 contract agreement. So while it hasn't been discussed at the table yet, I can assure you it's front and center in these negotiations.
Thanks, Jason. The next question here is, are we negotiating to improve quality of life for reserve pilots? And Eric, that question's for you.
The short answer is yes. I'll give a little color on that. So, like I said, the last 7 months, really, we've been, in scheduling working groups, trying to work our way through quality of life improvements, obviously not just for reserve, for regular pilots as well, and for bidding purposes and all of that. There's tentacles into a lot of pieces of this job in the scheduling, orbit. But reserve has been a big piece of that puzzle because, covering trips that become uncovered, or, all of the work rules that surround pilots on reserve, they're central to a lot of these conversations. So I will say we've achieved some pretty significant improvements to quality of life for reserve pilots. And, that is a huge priority at the table, making improvements to long call, making improvements to short call, the timeline for when you get trips. All of those things have been on the table. And our hope is to come out of this with, a much more livable reserve system for our pilots who find themselves on reserve.
Thanks, Eric. The next question is for Jason. So why has the MEC decided to support the AFA and the organization efforts of the Delta flight attendants?
Thanks, Shane. That is a good question. Most obvious is that we're unionists, right? We're trade unionism, and we believe in employees' rights to collective bargain. So that's number one. Number two is many times at the table, the negotiators are approached with, well, if we do this for you, we have to do that for another employee group, or they try to do a costing that includes, oh, well, if we do this for you, it is this. Now, our negotiators reject that at every turn. However, that's just a fact. So again, supporting the flight attendants and the unionization efforts of the AFA that would allow them to bargain for themselves, and we wouldn't be hearing that at the table.
Okay, thank you. So the next question's for Eric. Two-part question here. What is the status of negotiations for an increase to retirement benefits and the minimum balance? And the second part is there an update that we can give the pilots on the market-based cash balance plan?
Yes, we are. I can do both of those. So the retirement benefits, we've talked about this value package. Section 26 is where those benefits live. We have negotiated quite a few improvements in Section 26 that are not related to the retirement benefit itself, the DC contribution, minimum balance, that sort of thing. So those are the two items that remain open in Section 26. Our DC contribution, which is currently 16%, we proposed an increase to 25% in our opener. Leading up to this contract negotiation, we did a lot of legwork in modeling, really what did a retirement benefit for a Delta pilot or really any mainline pilot over the years, what did it look like? And what did it take to fund the pension that we used to have? Obviously, pensions went away, and it's not likely that a pension as we used to have would ever come back. But our goal through this negotiation was to find a way to provide the same amount of value going forward. So 25% was proposed because, quite frankly, that's what it takes to provide that kind of benefit. Of course, once you do that, you don't have enough room in your 401k. The IRS limits the amount of money that you can deposit on an annual basis into a 401k. So we needed a place to put this money. That's where the market-based cash balance plan comes in. And I'm sorry if I'm doing a history lesson here, but it all kind of fits together, and it's important for context as to what these individual pieces are aimed at doing. So the market-based cash balance plan, we were able to get the company actually in the COVID era under LOA 2004 to commit to establishing the cash balance plan. Now, through all this, we've all known that there's a hurdle in doing such because the cash balance plan is considered a defined benefit plan. When the pensions were frozen and terminated at Delta and Northwest, they were done so and offered relief on the funding requirements under a provision called the Pension Protection Act 2006. That also had a provision that said, hey, if we're going to give you relief on the pension funding, or if you're going to terminate these things, then we don't want you starting a new one right away. So there was basically a provision in this Pension Protection Act that says you can't start a new pension until October of 2023. So when we started this process back in really 2018, that was an eternity away, and we had a pretty high degree of confidence that we were going to be able to approach Treasury and say, hey, you're not going to object now. Obviously, Delta's in a different place. We are setting up a new plan that's going to capture retirement funds that Delta pilots are already getting, as well as any future negotiated funds. We underestimated the level of bureaucracy that exists at the Treasury. So up to this day, I just talked with our government affairs people last week about this exact issue. We still do not have clarity from the Treasury on this issue, and that's really the holdup on the plan itself. As far as the benefits that we're looking to fund in there, that's part of our proposal. And as we've said a couple times in this video, the value discussions that are coming very soon, that'll be center stage. The retirement contributions are right alongside the retro pay and our pay raises. The minimum balance, the intent of that was really to say, look, if you did have a pension that was frozen or terminated, and we do end up achieving a large increase to our DC contribution, someone that doesn't have a lot of time left is not really going to benefit from that, but may still, so the goal of this contract was to really raise all ships. A rising tide raises all boats, right? And the intent of this contract was really to help everybody, achieve a better retirement benefit than they currently have. The only way to do that with people who don't have a whole lot of time left is the minimum balance concept. So we put out quite a bit of communication on this back when it was proposed originally. All that's still sitting out there on the Delta webpage. If you want to read up on it, I encourage you to do so, because it's really not. It wasn't intended to be a money grab for some people or others. It's really intended to be a comprehensive solution. The DC going up helps solve it going forward. The minimum balance solves it for those that don't have time, and the market-based cash balance plan is needed to capture those funds for everybody. So it's a long-winded response. As far as the implementation of the plan itself, that's kind of separate from Section 6 now. If we got a call from Treasury tomorrow saying, look, we're not going to object to starting this plan, we'd be turning it on right away. But that's the holdup right now. That holdup ceases to be an issue in October of 2023. So, we're now looking a little over a year down range, and that would be the worst case scenario at this point for that plan to become inactive.
All right, thanks, Eric. Apologize. I fat thumbed the screen there and skipped a question. This is also for you, Eric. Positive space commuting sunsets on October 31st when the CARES Act runs out for this benefit. Are we negotiating for permanent positive space commuting benefits?
Yes, we are. It's a priority of the Delta MEC. It's a benefit that has been very popular with the pilots, and it's certainly part of our position with the company. Obviously, they're looking at it in the context of other employee groups. That's not something that we allow to enter the conversation for when we're negotiating for pilots. But it certainly is a priority for the Delta MEC to make this permanent.
Okay, great. Thanks, Eric. Another one for you, Eric. What improvements to vacation are we seeking?
Well, this is another section where we entered this negotiation really lagging, many of our peers, whether it, is related to the accrual, which is the number of weeks that you have at any given point in your career, to the value of a day, to some of the provisions around bidding and, moving your vacation or those sorts of things. All of that's on the table. And I will say we've made some gains on some of the more ancillary parts of vacation, like vacation slides being contractualized, like vacation distribution improvements, so that all the vacation weeks aren't offered in February. We actually get some in the summer. We've made improvements there, and but really again, this, I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is one of those items that drives value, drives headcount, and it's one of those things that I believe is going to be viewed in the context of a value package that like I say, is right around the corner once we really put the scheduling issues to bed. The major value items, the accrual and the value of a day, will be on the table alongside the pay, the retirement, the retro, all those pieces that are still kind of outstanding. But we are seeking improvements to vacation really in every one of those categories.
Great, thanks, Eric. Appreciate the answer. The last question we have here is for Jason, and it's: are we negotiating provisions to protect pilot medical freedoms?
All right, thanks, Shane. Yeah, as I recall, we've had quite a few questions on that, so we'll put it into one. Let's do a little historical perspective on that. That we obviously supported pilots' rights and avoided a mandate like other properties. We even pushed back at the Alpha national level to make sure that pilots had the right to medical choice. The MEC is committed to that. They've supported a resolution on language for the PWA and have provided direction on it. We can't get into specific direction or where it's at in the process, but your MEC is committed to it. We're committed to it, and absolutely we're seeking those some language to that effect. Thank you, Shane.
Okay, great. Well, that concludes the pilot question and answer part of the presentation today. We're a little ahead of schedule, so I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you guys. Eric, do you have any closing comments you'd like to share with the pilots before we close out?
Yeah, just keep showing your unity. Like I say, that's the number one thing you can do to help us at the table. Like Jason has alluded to, there's some further pieces coming out from our strike preparedness committee that are going to talk about the strike vote and what that means and what it doesn't mean. Please just keep yourself informed on this. We get emails every day from pilots, giving us feedback. Keep it coming. Copy your reps in, because they're the ones that are making these decisions. Really on the path that we're on here. So, but just stay engaged. That's the most important thing I can say. Please come out September 1st for that next picket, and keep showing your unity.
Thanks, Eric. Jason, do you have any closing comments?
Sure. Thanks, Shane. To piggyback on what Eric said, was absolutely September 1st picket. Join us. Unity, solidarity. Those are important things. They're not just words. It really helps move the needle at the table. Your MEC is unified. Your elected union representatives are unified on, just as we are, the admin, the negotiating committee, on getting a truly industry leading agreement that you are Delta pilots, that we have earned. This is not just a catchphrase. We're serious, and we're going to get there. We're going to start moving into these high value items, the economics, as Eric indicated. We need that leverage. We need the unity and then the solidarity to move the needle and achieve that contract. So again, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. A lot of people working on your behalf. It's, as I said already, it's not just us here. A lot of people work tirelessly on behalf, and we appreciate everything they do. Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate the support. And with that, Shane, I'll throw it back to you. Thank you, Shane, for hosting.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Eric and Andrew, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all the pilots that joined us live. Just you joining us live means that you're engaged and you're with the rest of your pilots as we move down the timeline of getting a new contract. So it's really important that you continue with this engagement. A couple reminders: the September 1st picket, which is Thursday, September 1st, will be system-wide. So in every Delta base, you can find more information in RSVP at dal.alpa.org. There's a banner with a link to the RSVP sites. Again, just want to plug DART. If you want to reach out to the number of MEC committees, we have 28 committees. Do so by using dart.alpa.org. That's the best way to reach your committee structure to get information and have your questions answered. Also, ACE for Unions is the app that the scheduling committee uses, as well as, I believe, the hotel committee and a few other committees. You can find that app in the Apple Store and the Android Store for applications. It's fantastic. And I know the scheduling committee would love to have all 14,000 pilots using ACE. And then finally, a lot of what was discussed today has been included in the Engage podcast. We have about 10,000 listens per episode. We'd like to get that number increased. So if you haven't listened to the Engage podcast yet, I really encourage you to do so. This is not an updated list of episodes, but we have about 16 episodes on there, ranging from everything from negotiating updates to discussions about the pilot assistance network, to fatigue, to scheduling, etc. So I really encourage all pilots to find the Engage podcast on their favorite podcast platform and give it a listen. With that, again, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on the next virtual town hall.